Hi guys, I am Sisa Maneli. I am a South African based in the UK. And in today's video, I want us to talk about a possible move for you if you want to relocate from South Africa to the UK or any parts of Africa, for instance, where you are considering a move to the UK. So this video will also cater for you because some of those things that I'll be talking about will be also applicable to you as well. So there are quite a few options for you to consider if you want to move to the UK. So one of the options is to come mainly as a skilled worker. So that means then you have some experience, you have the qualifications, and you apply for a job, and then you get a job, and then you move there based on that job. And then another option some people that also consider is a study visa. So that means then you apply to study here in the UK for like a year or 2 years, and then once you finish your studies, then you can apply for a graduate visa, and then once a graduate visa, then you can apply for a skilled worker visa, a sponsored job. So the easiest one to do is to get the skilled worker visa, because that one immediately once you come here you start getting paid, you have a job, you're getting paid, and you don't have to worry about finding sources of income. So you already know that all your expenses are covered by your job. But now if you're considering the student visa side of things, that means then you have to first pay for your studies, pay for your accommodation and your living expenses in that year or 2 years while you are studying. And then after that, you then have to find a job that can sponsor you after you finish your graduate visa. So I will deal a bit more with the skilled worker visa than the student visa, since that's the visa I came with here to the UK. So I came here a little over 2 years on a skilled worker visa. And so the process of applying for a skilled worker visa and applying for a job from South Africa is quite straightforward. So the main thing is to actually find a sponsored job. So for instance, so when you are searching for a job, you have to specify that you are looking for jobs that can sponsor you to come and move to the UK. So because some of the jobs might not be eligible to sponsor for a job. So there are certain criteria that you most jobs have to consider for them to be eligible for sponsorship. So one of the few things is that the company must be registered with the home office and as a company that can sponsor people. And then also the job you're applying for, it has to meet a certain salary threshold and certain other requirements. But the main thing that you have to look at for you to realize that maybe your job that you're applying for doesn't meet the criteria is a salary threshold. So the salary threshold, when I started out, it was just over 26,000 pounds per annum, but now it has since moved up to it moved initially last year in April to 38,700, and now this year in July it has moved again to over 41,000 minimum per annum. So that means then if you're considering a job, the job that you're applying for must pay you over 41,000, I think 700 if I'm not mistaken, and then that means then the company can, if the company is registered to sponsor people, then they can then consider you for that job. So once then you can then go through the process and then apply, and then hopefully if you go through the interview process, then they will give you an offer for the job. So some companies, depending company to company, they can pay for your resettlement amount, but some companies don't. So it just depends company to company. So that means that if the company doesn't pay for your resettlement fee or relocation fees, that means that some of that cost will be paid into you. So that means that it's money that you must already have or you could have access to. So there's quite a few fees that you have to consider. For instance, is the application fee, is the health surcharge fee. So depending on the visa, how many years they give you on your visa. Most visas, they normally give you 2 years or 3 years. So, and then after that, they renew it for another 3 years or another 2 years. So if they give you, for instance, for 3 years, that means then you have to pay the health surcharge fee for the full 3 years. And then you have to pay for the application fees. And if you have a family, then each member of your family also has to pay the health surcharge fee for the 3 years as well, and then also the visa application fees and all the associated fees. And then on top of that, for the main applicant, you also have to pass your English language test. You also have to pass your TB test. So you have to go for some TB exams, and then you have to make sure that you don't have TB in your lungs. And then if all of your members of your family are also applying with you, they also have to go to the TB test as well to do the TB test. It's only the English exam that they don't have to do, but the TB test everybody has to do it. Before we look into the skilled worker visa and all of that, sometimes you need to also look at finding a job. Like, how do you go about finding the job to begin with? In the UK, they take LinkedIn very seriously. So the first thing where you'd find jobs or you can look for jobs is to make sure you are on LinkedIn. You're looking for jobs on LinkedIn. You must make sure that your profile is up to date, is updated with the relevant information, and then you must also make sure that your terminology that you use in your CV is UK specific terminology. So what I would advise most people to do is to then look at typical job descriptions from the UK that they are interested in applying for, and then copy some of the terminology that is used in the UK, and then swap it for the South African terms and terminology that they use in South Africa, so that your profile can stand out to the UK market. So, and then once you have your profile set up and updated, then you can start applying. And the same thing with your CV. The CV also has to be updated so that it meets the UK terminology and how they do things, and so that then the process will be smoother, so that your application can go through ATS quite smoothly. And so those are some of the things that you just need to make sure from the beginning. But the first place is to actually make sure that you are on LinkedIn, your profile is up to date. You must also then start following some of the recruiters that are recruiting in your industry or the industry you want to enter in the UK. So you start following those people, and then you start chatting to them and speaking to them and finding out what exactly do they need. You make sure that then you kind of make sure that all of that is up to date, and you pass it all the information. Then they can help you to find a job and arrange for an interview. And once the interview is arranged, then you prepare for the interview. You make sure that you prepare very well, and because the competition is quite tight, you are not the only one. There are people from all over the world, so you need to make sure that you are prepared and over prepared, and make sure that you also learn and make sure that the language and the terminology that is used here, you also understand all of that. So once you arrive in the UK, there's quite a few things that you need to also consider, and the environment is completely different to what you are used to back home. The weather, number one, is completely different. So depending on what time of the year you arrive, it might be completely different to what when you left South Africa. So if you left South Africa, let's say in March, it's relatively summer, but to get here, it's still cold, and it's still maybe sometimes snowing. So you need to be prepared for that, mentally and physically as well. Because sometimes if you are not mentally prepared for it, you'll be homesick and you want to go back within a month. So it's one of those things that you need to prepare for, and make sure that you understand the location that you'll be going to, that what kind of weather, what is expected there. Is it a snowy area, or is it a rainy area, or is it a slightly dry area? So those are the things you need to consider even before going, and so that the stuff you pack in your bags is also tailored to the environment that you are going to, so that you are not packing shorts while you're coming here, where maybe for the next 6 months it's going to be cold and wet, and you're not going to be wearing any of those shorts and short sleeve shirts and all of those things. So those are the things you need to consider from the beginning. Another thing you also need to consider is the cost of living. And sometimes when you get an offer from South Africa to come to the UK, sometimes you see the big number, and then you just directly convert it from pounds into rands. And in most cases, that could be deceiving, because the standard of living here is completely different to South Africa. For instance, if you are offered, let's say, £30,000, if you convert that into rands, and it's like, oh, it's over 600,000, but the standard of living here is equivalent to that salary, or it might be actually less than the average salary here. But then when you convert it into rands, you feel like it's quite a lot. But then you start moving here, and then you start paying all the fees, the accommodation, transport, food, and everything else. Then it starts adding up, and then all that money just goes to all your bills and the living cost here, and you don't even have enough money to save and send back home. So you need to then consider the salary you get and all your goals. So sometimes, like, the converted value might not be indicative of the standard of living here, because you have to also consider the area you'll be living at. So you might be going to London, 30,000 will not cut it in London. And if you are moving maybe to a rural area north of England or Scotland, so it might be maybe acceptable, but then you will not be able to save enough throughout the year. So it's something that you need to consider. So you need to calculate average salaries in the area, average salary in the UK as a whole, and average salaries in your profession. How much do you want to earn, and how much do you want to save as well? But sometimes the salary they will offer you is a living salary for here. It's not for you to save a lot of money to send back. So it's something that you must make sure that you think it through before accepting an offer. There are quite a few pros and cons of moving to the UK. So one of the pros is number one is for career growth and career movement. So you can actually move. It's quite easy. It was relatively easier to find a job. You are not going to be maybe stuck in the same job. You can, most companies also, there's also a succession plan, so you can actually move up the ladder quite quickly. So depending on your already gained experience, and then when you get here, if you demonstrate like quite high levels of potential, you can actually move up quite quickly and rise to quite high levels in your position or in your career. And you can also move to other companies that do the same thing, and it would be quite easier for you to do that here than in South Africa, where the competition is quite tight for you to find a job. And another pro is, for instance, access to healthcare, access to schools, and things like that. So they're quite accessible, and some of the things are free. For instance, education for children is free, and sometimes transport to get to school is also freely available. And most of those things are quite beneficial if you moving with your family to the side. So when you move to the cons, so one of the cons is then distance from family. So from what you used to in South Africa, you have family support surrounding you, and now you come to this place and you are the only one from your family that is here. You don't really have that family support. So it's something that you need to consider quite early on. You have to build a support system around you so that you don't feel lonely and homesick. So that is one of the cons that you need to look into quite early on. And another con is also like high cost of things. Like things are quite expensive. For instance, rent is quite expensive. There's also, you have to pay council tax. You have to pay your utilities. Food, I would say, is like, it's not that expensive, but it's relatively more expensive than South Africa if you're buying food from a grocery store. But if you are buying like takeaways and eating out at restaurants, that is incredibly expensive. So, but you can live if you just cooking at home and you're not eating out that much. Food is not that expensive relative to South Africa. As I come to the close of this video, so some tips to look into when considering a move. I would say make sure that you do your research quite thoroughly in terms of the area you are going to, the field you are going to, and so that you know like what salaries you are expecting and the rent you're expecting to pay in the location that you're going to be moving to, because you don't want to be caught by surprise you go to an area where actually it's quite expensive. You were thinking like it's a rural area, all to find out it's actually a more expensive area because it's a bit upmarket area. So it's something that you need to consider quite early on. Make sure you do your research quite thoroughly, so that you know like the area is relatively affordable in terms of accommodation. And then also the field you are applying to, is this something that you can grow? Are there companies in the location that you are going to be staying that are close by, so that if you have to move from your company, can you easily move around? So those are some of the things you need to consider when you are doing your research early on. So also you have to budget for your visas, and I would say like at the moment I think you need about, for one person you need over 100k or around 100k, 100,000 rands for all the visa fees and the health surcharge fees and all the other associated fees. So unless your company, because most of the time, even if the company covers those things, sometimes they say you must pay them yourself first, and then they will reinvest to you once you join the company. So that means then initially you need to have that money upfront, meaning that at least about 100,000 for one person. But then if there's like the whole family, then that's even more. And then sometimes like some of the companies will cover for the main applicant. So that means the person who's gotten the job, and all the other family members, then you have to cover them yourself. So that's one of the cons that you, or things that you need to consider quite early on. And then also something I'll also say, like you must also look into before you do all of these things, is to actually build like in-person support of people that you can talk to, you can find out information about the move and the things and areas and all those things that you can consider when you come this side. So if you have some family members that you can speak to, you have people maybe you see online that you can talk to that are relatable, and you can find out information about the move. And then you can also join like Facebook groups about some people from South Africa or Southern Africa, for instance, that you can relate to that are already in the UK. There's a lot of Facebook groups where you can join in, and you can find out questions about some of the things that you need to know about your move to the side. Another thing that sometimes people think, like because they are moving to the UK, they're expecting it's greener pastures, it's greener on the other side of the world. So it's not always greener on the other side, and don't expect perfection from the beginning. Don't expect things to just happen for you. So sometimes things take time, and you need to adjust to things. So give yourself also time to adjust to the environment and how things are done. Don't just like maybe in the first month or 2 months, and then you start panicking and think, oh no, I'm not going to survive this. So give yourself time. Allow yourself to settle in and learn how things are done in here. So the cultures are slightly different. Yes, we might speak English and understand English, but they do things their own way or certain ways. And there's a lot of things that are quite different. Even like going to a supermarket, there's a lot of brands that we're not familiar with, and the food tastes slightly differently. So those are the type of things you need to try to adjust to, so that you don't feel homesick. And so it's something that you need to early on, that give yourself time, take it slowly, don't rush into things and rush into decisions. Take your time, and once you have settled, then you start gradually then taking some decisions that you want to take. If you want to move to a certain area, you want to move to a certain area, or different area, whatever. Yeah, in closing, guys, as I said, like if you are considering a move, it is definitely possible, but it requires a lot of planning, and you must be open-minded as well. Don't just think about the money and that's it. You have to think about the whole move holistically, and how long are you going to be here for. Don't just think you're going to be here for like, oh, I'm going to just stay in the UK for a year or 2 years. You have to think that you are going to move here almost permanently. If you end up staying here for 2 years, yes, that's okay, but you could end up staying for longer. So you must prepare to stay here for longer. Don't come and say, oh, I want to stay here for like only 2 years, because that's going to put a lot of pressure on you, because you'll be working on the deadline, saying like in 2 years time, I need to leave, I need to have saved this amount of money. And that could put you under a lot of pressure, and then give you a lot of stress. And you might actually end up not enjoying the UK, and you might end up leaving prematurely and without you realizing all your goals. Okay, thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you in another episode. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this video. I will see you again on the next episode.